What's up, extremities? No, that doesn't work. You're not appendages. What's up, extreminites? Nope, that's copying him too much. What's up, you very super cool people who are into statues? Yeah, baby. Welcome to the Extreme Channel. My name is Mr. X. A big part of this channel is high-end collectibles. We have one in front of me. This is Predator from Predator 2. He's the City Predator. It's an older piece by Sideshow Collectibles that I've had for a long time. And actually, I'm getting rid of him. So I'm doing a for sale video that may have or have not already launched because I am replacing him with this piece by Prime One Studios. And the cool thing about this piece, it's actually wall mountable. And with space being the biggest enemy of collectors, to me that's a huge advantage. I also considered getting this piece from Infinity Studios. However, I have a lot more experience with Prime One Studios, only about 4 or 5 pieces from Infinity, and probably 50 from Prime One Studios. Plus the wall mountable option is why I went with him. So I thought before he leaves the collection, I might as well do a review on him. So first of all, as many of you know, I love Predator. While there's about 6 different films on Predator, I'm not a huge fan of all the films, but I love the creation itself. I love the Stan Winston creature. The concept is just awesome. And I purchased him because I wanted him to go with my Sideshow Jungle Predator that I've reviewed right here. And this one is also going to be in the for sale video because I'm replacing him with multiple other Predators from Prime One Studios. I'm almost all in. I'm just on the fence about their Samurai one, which is probably going to end up in the Extreme Collection anyway. Now, officially, this is made by Sideshow Collectibles, and this is a maquette. A maquette is a non-scaled piece. So it's not a traditional, like, 1/4 scale where he's 4 times smaller than what he'd be in real life. And most people argue that this piece is between 1/4 and 1/3 size, and I think that's pretty accurate. I actually have him next to the 1/4 scale Dutch, and I've reviewed that as well, and he is way bigger than 1/4 scale, but I don't think he's truly big enough for 1/3 scale, as I have 1/3 scale Prime One Alien, and then a monster 1/3 Alien vs. Predator piece that'll hit the review table in the next month. Original retail on this guy was $1,200. They made 1,400 of them, 1,000 being the collector's or normal version, and 400 being the exclusive, which is what this is. I bought him secondhand, and I think I paid right around retail, if I remember correctly. It was a couple years ago, so I'm not quite sure. But I haven't had a chance to look it up because after I get done filming this, I need to go wake up Mrs. X and give her some other good loving. TMI? Well, before we jump into the review, we're doing a few giveaways. Number 1, during this video sometime, make sure you comment on the video. It enters you into a monthly drawing. Number 2, we're actually giving away a statue. I'm not sure if this will air when we're giving away the Baraka statue or the very next statue. But to get into that, you have to be subscribed, you have to like the video, and you also have to comment. So let's dive into the review talking about concept. And this is particularly important here because this is a movie piece. So one of the parts about concept is it accurate to the movie? Does it take things from the movie? Is it cool? Does it tell a story? And I think absolutely it does. Starting at the bottom, you have a few things going on. I love the fact that Sideshow does an extra bust or portrait display where you can have the helmet. I always put the helmet on the portrait display while it does have the dreadlocks or quills coming out of the back. It's not really a pedestal for the mask, it kind of looks like one. But what I love about this base is it's not directly drawn from the movie, you have a couple different elements in it. It really reminds me of the end scene when Danny Glover went below the earth where the ship was hiding, and then they tied in some human skulls and some other Predator-like designs, and then kind of that muddy, dirty surface. So it's not necessarily directly from the movie, but I think it ties some of the characteristics. And as you move up the City Predator here, he is in a museum stance, which means he's posing for a picture. He's not in a action dynamic stance like their Wolf Predator, which I also have. I don't think I've ever reviewed him. I should at one time. And as you move up, there's a number of switch out options we're going to talk about during design. But he is fully armored, fully decked out. Predators, as you know, they are hunters. That's what they do. And he is ready for battle. A few different things going on with his armor and his weapons. And as you move up to the top, I am currently displaying the unmasked portrait. As I said, I always do that. The unmasked portrait on top and then the masked portrait below, but they are interchangeable. And Predators just naturally look badass. I actually have this one by Cool Props in the life-size bust because I really like the way it looks, the fierce look on his face. And I also like the fact that Sideshow's done multiple Predators. And even though they are different scales, you can kind of put them, you can kind of display them together. But overall, the concept isn't incredibly unique. It isn't incredibly elaborate. It does follow the movie. So I think it's right in the middle. It's a V for very average or very good. Now, design on this guy, there are definitely some issues, and some of those led to breakages. So before we jump into that, let's talk about some of the switch outs that it has. As we talked about, you can display either portrait. Here's a close look at the masked portrait, even though, as I said, I never display it. And then another closer look at the unmasked portrait. And of course, we'll look at him very, very close during paint and sculpt. Now, his mandibles here are obviously permanently shut, and I love it when the Predator mandibles are wide open, so I think that's a little bit of an opportunity they had. His left arm, he can be holding this spear. Now, this is the collector's version that comes with all of them, his classic spear. Then he also has a smaller breathing mask that he used in the movie as well. This is the exclusive, and this is still in the box. That's why I'm using a stock photo. I didn't think this was that cool. Now, on the right hand, the collector's version comes with a hand. But the exclusive, which I have, is the Predator disc, which is very cool. And let's do the dimensions really quick. So his widest point is probably about 11 inches, so it doesn't take up that much space for a piece that's bigger than 1/4 scale. The staff may make it go out a little bit farther. Depth is going to be about a little under 13. And then height is right at 27.5 or so inches. Now let's talk about some of the design issues. Number one, let's look at his blade right here. It is not only plastic, but it is painted bad. It doesn't look metal at all, while their Jungle Predator looks metal. And I could be incorrect, but I think their Jungle Predator may have come out after this. I think it's a huge miss with this piece. Then also, my spear is broken. Here's a picture right here, and it's because it's so brittle. I barely touched it, and it broke off. Of course, I bought this secondhand, so maybe it was glued by somebody else, but it's an easy fix, thankfully. I just never got around to it. I also have a broken dreadlock or quill right up here, trying to get his dreadlocks around his classic shoulder gun or laser, or whatever you want to call it, is incredibly difficult, so I had a pretty clean break here. Now, you really can't tell when you're looking at him, but it's still a bummer. So definitely some design opportunities, I think. It's almost like it's a little bit cheap, but what's funny is this still goes for retail or above. I will be selling it less for that, or I have if you've seen that video. By the way, if you're interested, just wait for the video to launch. So overall, definitely some design issues. I don't understand why they did a lot of what they did. So for those reasons, I actually give the design a 2 out of 5. I give it ugly. Now let's talk about the paint and sculpt. And on this, there's some parts that are really, really good and I'm really impressed by it. And then there's some parts that I'm once again, what were you thinking? Now let's look at the mini bust and the helmeted portrait. These both look great. I like how the mini bust, the base, you can barely see it, but it matches the regular base. So very smart on their part. And then his helmet. I like the rusted look on this a lot. I think they did a nice job. Kind of the patina, kind of that faded copper look. It's very movie accurate, well done. Would have been neat if they could have done a light up feature for his targeting system. The base looks great. I'm really impressed like this. I really like the paint on it. I think they did a nice job. Like I said, it really combines all these different colors on top of that sculpt. So you have the pattern design on the front and back with the front and the sides with the skulls, and then the top of it kind of looks like a mix between rock and mud, and it's this different colors of red and brown and gold. Let's look at the Predator skin here. I'm not impressed with the paint job. It looks okay. His feet are really bad, in my opinion. Just the blend between the dark red colors and the lighter colors. As you move up the rest of the body, it looks better, but it's nothing amazing. I think he should have had a little bit more scaly reptilian type skin, so I think that's a miss. But the net, which is mixed media or fabric, the net kind of covers that up and I think forgives a lot of those sins. But the blending back and forth of the colors looks good. I just am not a big fan of really that lighter color, that beige color. And it might be more of a texture issue than a paint issue. And his armor leaves a lot left to be said as well. I think there's some misses on the armor where the paint looks a lot better. I think that there was some opportunity in the sculpt. They wanted to make this, not really shiny. What I really love about Predator is it's a mix of futuristic high-tech stuff and original tribal warrior. So I think that mix is pulled off well. While that's more of a character thing than a statue thing, it's done well here. And you see a few parts of mixed media, leather straps around it, which I understand why they did that. I don't know if the Prime 1 Studios has any mixed media at all. Take a look at his hands. Again, the disc, they could have made it metal. It looks better than the blades, of course, but his hands look great. The claws, the bony fingers. And then even his staff here, I like how the middle of it's kind of this wooden aspect feature. Again, kind of those original ties like a tribal warrior, and then a futuristic, technologically advanced aspect to it. The dreadlocks are quills. I call them quills. I know a lot of people call them dreadlocks. They look fine. They actually look much better on the newer version, the Jungle Predator they did. Like if that is newer, I believe it is, even though it came from the original movie. But they look good. The flow of direction is nice. Here's a shot of the gun. I like the fact the gun is very significantly different than the Jungle Predator. But as I said, that's more of a movie thing than a statue thing. And now let's look at his portrait. So his mandibles look a little cheap. I don't like that, but the rest of it looks good. I really like the paint job and the texture and the sculpt on the portrait. It's really well done. To me, this is one of the scarier Predators, even though he was one of my least favorite Predator characters. I think his portrait is done very well. They did a nice job with the eyes, with the blending of the colors, and really the sculpt itself is kind of the winner in this. So let's start with the sculpt. I think there was definitely some opportunity left on the armor and some of the skin texture here, but the base is great, the portrait is great. So I'm going to give the sculpt a 3 out of 5. Remember, this is an older piece, so it's still very nice. It's still very good, very average. The paint, though, I think is definitely some missed opportunity. It's the best part of the paint is the base and the portrait, but kind of in between, which is really important. They missed on that. So I'm going to go ahead and give that ugly a 2 out of 5 on the paint. So overall, does this piece have the X factor? It's not a 5 out of 5 statue to me. It may be to some other people, but I think it's very nice, especially for its time. It's a 3 out of 5 statue. I don't think it's worth the price I paid. I don't think it's worth the retail price. I'm going to be selling it for lower what I think it's valued at, especially with some of the breakage issues I talked about. But let me know in the comments a piece you have in your collection that you really like that other people don't. I'm not saying this is one for me, but just kind of the topic we talked about earlier. Hey everybody, it's very cool that you tuned in, because sometimes when I review an older piece, people have seen tons of reviews on it, but they still tune in, they still support the channel, they still want to see the content, so thank you very much. And you can support it by hitting that like button if you haven't, hitting that Mr. X logo to subscribe, and check out some of these other sideshow pieces. Otherwise, I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.